I've seen this happen enough times now that I can't call it a coincidence anymore. The guy putting in the least effort somehow ends up with the most genuine connection, and the guy trying hardest ends up with nothing but her respect, which, let's be honest, is not what you're after. But there's a reason for that, and once you see it, you'll never approach a conversation with a woman the same way again, because everything you've been told about building connection with a woman, the deep questions, the active listening tips, the be vulnerable advice, most of it is pointing you in the wrong direction. Not because it's wrong in theory, but because of when and how guys actually use it. They use it like a tool, like a technique, and she feels that every time. Think about the last conversation you had with a woman you were genuinely interested in. Be honest with yourself. Were you actually present, or were you half listening while the other half of your brain was busy thinking about what to say next? Most guys are having a performance, not a conversation, and women, whether they can articulate it or not, feel the difference immediately. So the connection never lands, because you were never really there. But researchers studying interpersonal bonding found something that cuts against almost everything the self-improvement space teaches. The moments people report feeling most connected to someone else aren't the moments of big, deep conversation. They're the small, unplanned, low-pressure moments where nothing important was supposed to happen. A joke that landed by accident, a silence that didn't feel awkward, a reaction that wasn't rehearsed. Connection, real connection, isn't built. It's stumbled into, and the guys who stumble into it most often aren't the ones trying hardest. They're the ones who stopped trying to manufacture something and just showed up. That's the paradox, and it explains everything about that guy who barely said 10 words and still went home with her number. So, if you already have a specific woman in mind while watching this, and you're trying to figure out what she actually feels versus what she's showing you, I put together something that might help. It's called The Truth Detector. It's a book I wrote about reading exactly what a woman wants, whether she's genuinely interested and when she's just playing games. First link in the description. It'll answer the question this video is building toward, faster and more specifically than anything else I've put out. But back to it, because most guys completely skip over this. Look, before you can build any real connection with a woman, you have to understand what connection actually is, because most guys are chasing the wrong thing entirely. They think connection is about finding common ground, shared interests, similar backgrounds. Oh, you like hiking? I love hiking. And look, that stuff doesn't hurt, but it's surface level. It's small talk dressed up as depth. She's had that conversation 100 times with 100 different guys. Real connection isn't about what you have in common. It's about how she feels when she's around you. Those are two completely different things, and confusing them is exactly why a guy can tick every box. Same taste in music, same sense of humor, same life goals, and still walk away with nothing. So what actually makes her feel it? There's a concept psychologist, Arthur Aaron, studied back in the 90s that became one of the most referenced pieces of research in social psychology. His team found that two strangers could generate genuine feelings of closeness, not attraction necessarily, but real closeness, through a specific kind of conversation, and it's something most guys completely overlook because it doesn't feel like enough. I'll tell you exactly what it is, but first I need to show you what's getting in the way, because there's one thing you're probably doing in every conversation that's quietly killing any chance of real connection before it even starts. And the worst part is, you think it's helping. You're probably trying to be interesting, and that's the problem. From the moment the conversation starts, there's this quiet pressure running in the background. Say something smart, say something funny, make her see you're worth her time. So you tell a good story. You drop something impressive without making it sound like you're trying to impress her. You ask a thoughtful question. You're working. The whole time, you're working. And she can feel it. Not consciously. It's a feeling she gets, like the conversation has an agenda. Like there's somewhere it's supposed to go. And that feeling, that low hum of pressure underneath everything, is exactly what stops real connection from forming. Because connection doesn't happen when you're performing. It happens when you're present. And those two things cannot exist at the same time. Here's a way to think about it. Imagine you're watching a genuinely good movie with someone. You're both locked in, reacting at the same moments, laughing, without thinking about whether it's the right time to laugh. Nobody's managing the experience. Nobody's trying. And afterwards, you both feel something, this quiet sense of having shared something real. Now that's connection. And it happened because neither of you was working at it. Now imagine the same movie, but this time you're aware that she's watching you watch the movie. Suddenly you're not really watching it anymore. You're performing watching it. You laugh a half second late. You glance over to see how she's reacting. The whole thing feels slightly off. Nothing changed about the movie, but the experience is completely different. That's what most guys are doing in every conversation with a woman they like. They're watching themselves have the conversation instead of just having it. So how do you stop? This is where Arthur Aaron's research gets genuinely useful. What his team found was that closeness forms fastest not through impressive stories or clever questions, but through mutual self-disclosure that escalates gradually. In plain language, you share something small, she shares something small, you go slightly deeper, she goes slightly deeper, back and forth, like a slow exhale, nobody performing, nobody trying to land anything. The keyword there is mutual. Most guys accidentally turn conversations into interviews. They ask question after question, never offering anything back, thinking they're being a good listener. But what she actually feels is interrogated, or worse, like you're auditioning her while keeping yourself safely hidden behind the questions. Real connection requires you to show up too. Not with the version of yourself you'd put on a dating profile, just something real, something small and human and slightly unpolished. This is exactly the kind of thing that's hard to fake and impossible to shortcut, which is why the guys who stumble into real connection aren't following a script. They're just genuinely in the conversation. But knowing what connection is doesn't automatically make it easier to create. Because the moment you're interested in a woman, really interested, something happens to your nervous system. Your brain shifts into a different mode. You start scanning for threats. Am I saying the right things? Does she seem bored? Is she looking around the room? And the second you enter that mode, you're gone. You're not present anymore. You're managing. Think about the last time you talked to a woman you had zero interest in romantically. Maybe a coworker, a friend's girlfriend, your barber's receptionist. Remember how easy that conversation was? How natural. You weren't trying to be anything. You were just talking. And ironically, in that completely low stakes moment, you were probably more attractive than you've ever been on a first date you actually cared about. But that ease, that's exactly what she's looking for. And the laziest way to build real connection is to figure out how to bring that same energy into conversations that actually matter to you. So how do you actually do that? There's one surprisingly small shift that changes everything. Most guys walk into an interaction with a woman thinking, I need to make this go well. Flip that. Walk in thinking, I'm just going to find out if I actually like her. That single reframe automatically moves you from performer to observer, from auditioning to evaluating. And the moment you're genuinely curious about her, your body language, your eye contact, your timing, everything shifts. You stop chasing the outcome, and she starts feeling something she doesn't feel with most guys. She feels like you're actually there. But there's a catch most guys hit right around the moment things start going well. When the conversation gets good and she starts opening up, because that's exactly when the old instincts kick back in. The urge to lock it down, to say something that makes it clear you're interested, to not waste the moment. And that instinct is the exact thing that unravels everything you just built. The conversation hits a rhythm. She's laughing, she's leaning in, she's asking you questions now, which, if you know anything about attraction, is a very good sign. Everything is flowing, and then your brain sends you a message. It says, this is going well, don't waste it, say something, lock it in. So you tell her you've really enjoyed talking to her, or you ask if she wants to do this again sometime, or you say something sweet that makes your intentions completely clear, and it feels right in the moment, it feels honest. Brave even. But what happens next? She smiles. She says something polite. And then, almost like a switch flipped, the energy changes. The conversation that felt effortless 30 seconds ago suddenly feels deliberate. Like you've both become aware that something is happening here. And now you're both managing it instead of just living in it. The moment you named it, you killed it. This is one of the most painful patterns in dating because it punishes the guys who are actually genuine, the guys who feel something and want to be honest about it. And it rewards, at least in the short term, the guys who never quite let her know where she stands. And that feels unfair. It is unfair, honestly. But understanding why it happens makes it a lot easier to work with. When you make your interest completely clear too early, you remove uncertainty. And uncertainty, as uncomfortable as it is for you, is the exact thing keeping her engaged. Her brain is trying to figure you out. Are you interested? How interested? Do you like her specifically, or are you just like this with everyone? That open question is what makes her keep thinking about you after you've left the room. The moment you answer it, she stops asking it. And when she stops asking it, she stops thinking about you. This isn't manipulation. We're wired as humans to pursue unresolved things. Finished puzzles don't hold our attention. Unfinished ones do. So what do you actually do in that moment when the conversation is good and everything in you wants to make a move? You stay in it. That's it. You resist the urge to editorialize the moment. You don't name what's happening. You don't fast forward to the outcome. You just keep being present in the conversation. Keep being genuinely curious about her and let the tension sit there unresolved. Because that tension, that unspoken thing between you, is the connection. The moment you try to define it, it evaporates. There's a reason the most memorable conversations you've ever had with a woman ended with you both walking away, thinking about each other. No declaration, no confirmation, just this quiet, unfinished feeling that made you want more. That's not an accident. That's what real connection actually feels like from the inside. But this is also where a lot of guys make a mistake that's almost the opposite of the first. They hear all of this, and they think staying unreadable means being distant, giving short answers, seeming unbothered to the point of being disengaged. And that's not it either, because there's a version of this that comes across as mystery, and a version that just comes across as boring. And the difference between the two is something most dating advice never talks about. The guys who do this right aren't distant, they're selective. There's a warmth there, a genuine interest in her, but it's not handed out freely. It's earned in small moments. She says something smart, you actually react to it. She makes you laugh, you let her see that. But you're not performing those reactions. They're real, and because they're real, and because they're not constant, they mean something when they happen. That's the laziest part of all this. You're not doing more, you're doing less, but making what you do actually count. Robert Greene wrote about this in a different context, but it applies perfectly here. He talked about how desire is kept alive by a careful, almost artistic withholding, the discipline to not give everything away at once, to let things unfold at a pace that keeps the other person leaning forward. Most guys sprint to the finish line of a conversation. The guys who build real connection treat it more like a slow walk somewhere interesting. No destination pressure, just two people actually present with each other, seeing where it goes. And here's the thing. When you stop trying to win the conversation and just have it, something relaxes in you. You stop monitoring everything. You start actually listening. And listening, real listening, not the kind where you're waiting for your turn, is probably the single most underrated thing a man can do in front of a woman, because it makes her feel seen. And feeling seen is what she's actually looking for underneath all of it. Not the perfect line, not the impressive story, just someone who's actually paying attention. So if you've been watching this and thinking about a specific woman, trying to figure out whether what she's showing you is real or whether she's keeping you at arm's length for a different reason, that's exactly what the truth detector is built for. It's in the first link in the description. It cuts straight to what's actually going on, so you're not guessing anymore. But we've been building towards something this whole video, and it's time to land it. Most guys don't actually want connection. Not really. What they want is confirmation. They want her to like them. They want to know they're enough. And they go into every conversation secretly auditioning for that approval, scanning her face for signs that they're passing the test. And she can feel that too. That quiet neediness underneath the confident exterior. It doesn't matter how well you hide it. It bleeds through. And here's why that matters, because you can use every technique in this video perfectly. Stay present, stay unreadable, let the tension sit, but if underneath all of it you're still just trying to get her approval, she'll feel it. The whole thing falls apart quietly, the way it always does. So the real fix isn't a technique. It's you deciding that you're not there to be chosen, you're there to choose, that you're not auditioning, you're observing, that your attention is worth something, and not every woman has earned it yet. That reframe sounds small. It isn't. It changes everything about how you show up. Your posture, your eye contact, the way you respond when she says something, the way you don't respond when she's testing you. Because real connection actually requires you to be someone you'd actually want to spend time with, not a performance of that person. The actual version, the guy who finds his own life genuinely interesting, who isn't sitting by the phone waiting for her to validate his day. That guy doesn't need tactics, he just shows up, and when he does, she feels it immediately. The difference between a man who needs her attention and a man who simply decided to give her his. One is chasing, the other is choosing, and women, almost without exception, are drawn toward the one who's choosing. This is what that guy in the room had. He just wasn't desperate for the outcome. He was okay either way. And that okayness, that quiet confidence that has nothing to do with arrogance, is the most attractive thing a man can walk into a room with. The laziest way to build real connection with a woman isn't a trick. It's showing up as a complete person who's genuinely curious about her, genuinely present in the conversation, and genuinely unbothered by whether she approves of him. Because that combination, presence, curiosity, self-possession, is rarer than you think, and when she finds it, she holds on. So here's what I want you to do. Next time you're talking to a woman you actually like, instead of thinking about what to say next, ask yourself one question. Am I actually listening right now, or am I just waiting? That's it. Start there. The rest follows naturally. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to stop guessing what she's actually feeling and start knowing, the truth detector is the first link in the description. Everything we talked about today, it takes it further. What she's really thinking, whether she's genuinely interested or just comfortable, when she's playing games and when she's not. It's all in there. You don't build real connection by trying harder. You build it by finally stopping.